Let's bring in Fox News Sunday anchor Chris Wallace. A lot of stuff just happened in the past 30 minutes, Chris, but the biggest thing we learned is that the Robert Mueller report, apparently, despite all the reporting we've been hearing in the past 5 or 6 days, will not be released or not be out next week. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I've been saying, if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times, always take the over on when this report is going to be released. It's always longer. I remember when John Dowd, then the president's personal lawyer, said this is going to be released by Thanksgiving of 2017. We're now past Valentine's Day of 2019. A lot of talk it was going to be released today. It was going to be released next week. And now it isn't. And you know, the answer is an old White House saying in the Reagan years, those who talk don't know, those who know don't talk. So and whoever is saying is the report's going to come out at such a point, eventually they'll be right, because at a certain point somebody has to be. But I always thought it was a weird time to release it anyway. The idea you're going to release a report. First of all, they're not going to release it. They're going to turn it over from the special counsel to the attorney general, and he'll decide how much he's going to release. But to release it while the president is in Vietnam in high-stakes diplomacy with Kim Jong-un on nuclear arms always struck me as a very odd choice by the special counsel and by the Justice Department. You know, it just would distract from something very important. We've been waiting since May of 2017 for the special counsel's report. We can wait another week.
Yeah, and meantime, the Democrats in Congress are already playing defense about when this whole thing comes out, because you have now Senator Richard Blumenthal saying, look, if this report is not released publicly, then, and he's quoting here, the public will feel rightly that there is a cover-up. And then on the other side, you have the House Intel Committee and Adam Schiff saying, here's the deal. Look, the bottom line is, if we are going to prep phase 2, if this doesn't show collusion, then phase 2 will go into action. So whatever is in the Mueller report, the Democrats are probably not going to like it.
Well, look, it depends on what's in the Mueller report. And, you know, the idea that anybody would like it if it showed that the president had committed a crime, you know, nobody should be rooting for that outcome. It would obviously be terrible news for the country if, and I repeat, if it were to show that. But there's no question, to get to your bigger point, that whatever Mueller comes out with, first of all, it goes to the Attorney General, Bill Barr. It's a confidential report according to the statute, and he then decides how much to release to Congress and how much to release to the public. But regardless of what he decides, this isn't going to be the end of it. First of all, because if he doesn't release everything, there will be subpoenas by House Democratic chairmen to try to either subpoena the report, to subpoena Mueller, to subpoena Bill Barr to get everything they can. And as you pointed out, Adam Schiff, chair of the House Intelligence Committee, is talking about a bunch of other issues that haven't been covered by the Mueller report, like questions of financial dealings between the Trump organization and Russia that he says he's going to pursue in any case. So this is going to be an issue right up to and through the 2020 presidential election.
Yeah, I know on Fox News Sunday you're going to be talking a lot, Chris, about this summit coming up, round 2 between President Trump and Kim Jong-un. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, do you expect some significance to come out of this? Lindsey Graham said earlier that he's hopeful that at some point in time they will get rid of their nuclear weapons. What do you think comes out of this that we can really point to?
Who knows? I mean, you look back, and I was in Singapore for the summit back in June, and you could argue the glass is a quarter full or it's 3/4 empty. Since June, actually since 2017, there has not been a single missile launch test by the North Koreans. There's not been a single nuclear bomb test by the North Koreans. That's a significant achievement. On the other hand, what they went in was calling for the complete denuclearization of North Korea, and they haven't given up a single missile, a single nuclear weapon. They haven't declared their inventory. They haven't let in inspectors, and those are all the kinds of things they were talking about in Singapore. Now, what's going to happen here? One of the concerns is that in his effort to try to achieve some progress, will the president give up too much? There's talk about declaring an end to the Korean War, which is there was an armistice, but it was never formally ended in the 1950s. The concern there, you'd say, well, what difference does it make? The concern is if the war officially ends, does that end the justification for having our 28,500 U.S. troops in North Korea? And that's a big issue. And what will Kim give up in return? Remember, back before Singapore, we were saying they have to give up everything before the U.S. does anything. Now there seems to be a feeling of perhaps reciprocal actions. They give up something, we give up something in return. That's a big difference from what we were talking about before Singapore.
And a lot of experts say, look, just the fact that we're continuing talks is a victory for both sides.
Well, yes, although, I mean, the flip side of that, you could argue, is by giving him, Kim, this platform on the world stage, that perhaps it has relieved sanctions or the pressure on sanctions. There's talk that China and Russia are not complying with the sanctions regime as much as they were before. South Korea is talking about wanting to resume some economic relations with North Korea. So, he does get a benefit even from having the meeting, but clearly having meetings and talking and no missile tests is better than where we were before with a little rocket man and talk about fire and fury.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of China, there was a lot of talk in the news conference just now, Chris, about the trade deal with China. The president says it's going to happen. It could happen very soon, and he hopes to meet with President Xi at Mar-a-Lago sometime possibly next month. Do you see this as a victory for the president if, in fact, these talks happen and the president kind of gets what he wants mostly out of this? Is this a victory for him?
Oh, this would be an astonishing victory if, and you got to put the if in there, two big caveats. First of all, that it's not just a question, there's been talk that the Chinese would buy more of our soybeans and various products. But what the president has been talking about is changing the architecture of the relationship between the U.S. and China, things like forced technology transfer, theft of intellectual property, that kind of thing. Two things have to happen. First, both sides have to agree to it. And secondly, and you hear U.S. officials talk about this, there has to be an enforcement regime, some way of saying this isn't just a bunch of nice words on paper, but there's some way of enforcing this so that the deals that are made between U.S. officials and Chinese officials, including the vice premier who is there in the Oval Office right now with the president, that it's actually, when the rubber hits the road, it's enforced, and both sides have to live up to that agreement. If they were to achieve that with all of the theft of intellectual property, all the technology transfer, all those things that have gone on in the past, all the closed markets, that would be an enormous victory for the president. But again, if.
Yeah, it is a big if. Chris Wallace, Fox News Sunday. Fox News Sunday. Chris, I'm going to let you tease your own show because I know you have Mike Pompeo coming up this weekend to talk about this upcoming summit, correct?
Yeah, so Mike Pompeo, who will be at the table with Kim and President Trump on Wednesday in Hanoi, will be live at our table here on Fox News Sunday morning to preview the summit. We'll also talk about the humanitarian crisis and this deadline tomorrow in Venezuela and the president's apparent change of mind allowing 200 troops to stay in Syria. We're also going to be talking to Tom Perez, the chairman of the Democratic National Committee. A lot to talk to him about as the president was discussing the Democrats in the House are trying to block the emergency declaration on the wall, and also what seems to be a considerable move to the left by the 2020 Democratic presidential candidates on issues like the Green New Deal and, all sorts of issues, Medicare for all, free college tuition, taxes on the wealthy. We'll be talking about all of that with Tom Perez.
Chris Wallace, good to see you, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Trace. Always a pleasure.
While President Trump was speaking, and a senior official at the Justice Department is now telling Fox News they do not expect the special counsel Robert Mueller's final report to be released next week. And remember, the president moments ago just said that he has not spoken to the new Attorney General William Barr, and we can also confirm that Barr has also not received a copy of the report. Let's get live to Rich Edson. He's at the White House for us. Rich.
Well, Trace, it appears as though the momentum is moving towards finding out much more of what Bob Mueller has been up to, the special counsel's office, what kind of information he has. He has, through court filings, been offering a glimpse into the information that he has learned and the charges that the special counsel's office has referred or filed. As for how this is going to proceed from here, there's an expectation that soon, according to a number of reportings out there, that the special counsel's office will turn its reporting over to the Attorney General's office, and from there the questions as to whether or not there will be anything else filed in court or any other specifics, or how exactly Bob Mueller's office will transmit any more information that the public might be able to find out about. This is also on top of next week. Michael Cohen, the president's former attorney who has pled guilty to a number of charges, will be testifying in front of the House Oversight Committee. The chairman of that committee says he plans on asking, he along with committee members plan on asking a host of questions dealing with the president's business dealings, issues during the campaign. That is expected next week. Meanwhile, while the president is out of the country meeting with Kim Jong-un, Trace.
Yeah, and Rich, I know you spend kind of half your time over at the State Department and half at the White House here. A lot of talk in this news conference today about the president and China and this trade deal. The president says he believes this will happen. That's significant because the Chinese government, President Xi, sent the president a letter today saying, look, we need to work this out.
Exactly. They're operating on a March 1st deadline here. So in a week, they need to figure this out, or else there's going to be a tariff increase of more than $200 billion worth of Chinese imports into the United States. The White House has said, and the president has said, if they feel like they're making progress, they can extend that deadline. And that's the sense that we've gotten just from the president's comments in the Oval Office here. The president saying a deal is more likely than not. The Chinese representative and lead negotiator agreed with that sentiment. The president also says he has an expectation that he will probably meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping at some point next month at Mar-a-Lago, and officials were saying they were working out the timing on that. Trace?
Rich Edson, live for us at the White House. Rich, thank you.